Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new day. Yes, today we're just about to take you back to some happenings during the week. Just about a week now from the election day, and yet everyone is still a little bit on the edge as to what is going to happen next, or what to expect. So even the president-elect, or so-called president-elect, I'm sure he's not even sure of what his positions really is. As you know, the other time when he was declared a winner, he made a statement by saying, "So it's really my turn." So which means he was asking question if it was really his turn. So he was not so sure. So I guess till now, he's still not very sure because of all the accusations and the process in which he emerged. So while some are talking about he not having the 25% required, to win that seat, because according to the Nigeria constitution, he was supposed to win at least, or a winner supposed to win majority of the vote, 25% from 25 states, including the FCT. That is including making 26 states of the federation. So spread out. So, but this man did not win the FCT with up to even 20%. I think he won. He got about 15 to 18% in the FCT, not even up to 20%. So the Labour won FCT hands down and even won Lagos State. So that is not news anymore. But what I'm about to touch on here now is what the observers in the European Union and all other international observers that were invited by the Nigeria government themselves, you know, what their opinions actually were, and how they came out to make their own declaration on how the whole thing went. So that is where I'm going to take you to. So I want to hear it for yourself. So, but please, we really need subscribers on our channel because it will actually help us, to boost, the or grow the channels itself, so that we'll be able to disseminate credible informations. Because if we were to be talking about giving out, dishing out some lies and things like that, I guess by now we'll be having more than enough subscribers who want to hear some sensational news. So, but we are not in for that. We are here to give you the actual things and the real things that is happening. So there's no deceit here. Please, support us, by subscribing and comment on our videos and likes. Please, we need it and we need it badly. So thank you. I thank you very much. And for those who have been supporting us, we thank you very much. Please keep it up. God will bless you. So let me take you now to the video of what they said, in their proclamation and assessment. Thank you.
Appreciation to the Independent National Electoral Commission for inviting the European Union to observe these elections. And I'd like to also express my gratitude to all our Nigerian interlocutors for the warm welcome that we have received throughout the country. This mission was deployed on the 11th of January and with the arrival of 11 core team members. The European Union's election observation mission also consists of 40 long-term observers. On election day, our mission was reinforced by short-term observers recruited from the diplomatic community who are well represented here today, as well as my colleagues from the European Parliament. Altogether, our team is composed of over 110 observers, representing citizens from 25 EU member states and from Canada, Norway and Switzerland. I would like to thank the delegation of the European Union located here in Abuja, European Union member states, as well as Canada, Norway and Switzerland, EU institutions, as well as international organizations participating on or contributing in any way to our mission. I'd also like to express my appreciation to my colleagues from the European Union Parliament, from the European Parliament in particular, my friend and colleague Mrs. Evan Inchier, who is the head of delegation, and thank you for all of your excellent cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday, Nigeria went to the polls for the 7th time since the restoration of democracy in 1999. I want to express my gratitude to the millions of Nigerian voters that cast their vote in the Presidential, Senate and House of Representatives elections on Saturday, despite prevailing challenges. I commend the commitment and determination of voters, especially of the youth who have contributed hugely to the democratic process. Today, the election process is far from finished. The mission is now only in a position to comment on observation undertaken to date, and we do not comment on the ongoing collation in a substantial way. The following remarks are therefore preliminary in nature on the process observed so far. So let me start with a summary of the main findings of our observations. Nigerians went to the polls in a highly anticipated presidential National Assembly elections, with INEC notably kept on schedule despite a volatile and challenging environment. Fundamental freedoms of assembly and movement were largely respected, yet the full enjoyment of the latter was impeded by insufficient planning, insecurity, and the prevailing naira and fuel shortages, particularly in the weeks before the election day. Abuse of incumbency by various political office holders distorted the playing field, and there were allegations widespread of vote buying. Media provided an extensive coverage of the three leading campaigns, but disinformation interfered with voters' right to make an informed choice on election day. Let me go into the details of our findings. First, about INEC. INEC was, of course, challenged by the ongoing fuel and cash shortage. Insecurity prevented INEC from accessing some areas, and it suffered attacks on its premises and personnel, including just days before polling. This hindered preparations in affected areas and instilled fear in voters. Overall, stakeholders expressed confidence in INEC's independence and professionalism and voter information efforts earlier in the process. However, there was a lack of efficient planning during critical stages of the electoral process, as well as a lack of transparency. On election day, delayed polling processes and insufficient information related to access to results on its results viewing portal, which reduced trust in INEC. In particular, presidential election results forms only started to be uploaded after 10 p.m. on election day. By noon yesterday, it had reached 20%. This is of serious concern, in particular given the high expectations given INEC's commitments in this regard. On a positive note, the new Electoral Act in February last year introduced measures aimed at building stakeholder trust. Amongst others, INEC benefited from more timely financing under the new law. However, there were some gaps in terms of accountability and enforcement of the law, including insufficient sanctions for electoral offences and breaches of campaign finance rules. There was a lot of expectations regarding the use of technologies in these elections. The introduction of the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, and the IREV was perceived as an important step to ensure the integrity of the election campaign. Almost 10 million additional voters were registered ahead of the polls. A majority of them, 2/3, were youth, a result of mobilization efforts during the registration period. Yet the collection of permanent voter cards, which is required to vote, was affected by poor planning. An audit of the voter register could have increased quality and inclusiveness. Party primaries were affected by a lack of transparency and inclusiveness, with notable very low participation of women and youth. The lack of legal measures for inclusion and barriers is of concern. The conduct of contesting parties and candidates, as well as some gaps in the law, led to a spate of pre-election court cases, with some matters not finalised ahead of elections. The campaign was highly competitive and contestants conducted rallies nationwide. But the naira, cash and fuel scarcity reduced activities and attendance. Political parties denounced unequal campaign conditions due to interference, and there were frequent reports of vote and PVC buying. There was a lack of prosecution of electoral offences and a significant increase in violent incidents with the potential to disturb the elections and suppress voter participation, particularly in the southeast. Even if challenged by a number of factors, such as economic hardship and electoral violence, media offered an extensive campaign coverage. Major parties received fairly equitable coverage. Unfortunately, analytical reporting on party policies was limited, and key candidates refused to participate in debates, thereby undermining voters' right to an informed choice.
We all are very honored to have been present during these crucial days of Nigeria, an important EU ally and a major player on the world stage. This is the seventh time that an EU election observation mission has been deployed to your country here in Nigeria. Our presence, both in the past and now, demonstrates the significance with the European Union which the European Union attaches to Nigeria, its people, and of course its democratic institutions. The European Parliament, directly elected by around 450 million European citizens, also observed these elections as a part of the European Election Observation Mission. In fact, this is the fifth time that the delegation of our European Parliament has been part of the EU mission. First and foremost, I want to express our full endorsement of the findings presented today by my colleague, the Chief Observer, Mr. Barry Andrews. I thank him for his work and cooperation. I would also like to express my thanks to the Nigerian authorities for the invitation to observe the elections and support provided to us to conduct our mission. In the past days, we have met with the foreign minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the chair of the Independent National Electoral Commission, the INEC, the president and judges of the Court of Appeal, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and media representatives. We would like to express our gratitude to them for having made time for us. These are the first elections which have been organized under the 2022 Electoral Act. This includes the increased use of technology, and most of our interlocutors prior to the election day welcomed as facilitating the reinforcement of the electoral process. During our meetings, our impression was that in the run-up to the elections, the stated ambition of the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria was to improve the electoral process. In addition, we were pleased to learn that in view of these general elections, the number of registered voters had risen by almost 10 million people to a total number of 93.4 million. We were also pleased that almost 40% of the registered voters were people between the ages of 18 and 30.
To determine the way forward. If there are challenges that we identify, it is down to the Nigerian authorities to make their decision about how they wish to proceed with those matters. I want to thank you for your cooperation, for other civil society organizations that, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, provided us with a very warm welcome and with clear information which helped us to form the assessment that we're sharing with you today. I obviously attended a number of polling units on Saturday, as did many of the people in this room, and in fact there were 150,000 observers across the country. We had over 100 associated with this mission, and we base our assessment on the observations received from all of the polling units, and by also cross-checking with other domestic and international observers. We, of course, as I pointed out in my opening comments, noted that the election was peaceful in most instances. We noted that the technology worked in many instances, but we also noted that expectations as the way the technology would transform the transparency of the election, those expectations were not met in a significant number of cases. The operation of the BVAS machines was not, it was significantly impaired in certain areas. We noted the operation of IREV during the course of the evening wasn't what was expected. We noted that in some instances the offline uploading of results onto BVAS machines was not done systematically. So there were other issues that we noted, and but we don't do them on a polling unit per polling unit basis. We simply did it across all of the observations that we obtained across the entire country. As regards making a difference, each election observation mission stands on its own merits. So we deployed here in early January and we began our process then. Nevertheless, our methodology means that we come back sometimes within 3 or 4 years to examine whether or not the previous missions' conclusions and recommendations are leading to actual implementation. And the previous mission came back a year ago and examined the 30 recommendations and found that 13 of them were already implemented or partially implemented, which is, I think, indicative that we do make a difference, that our efforts serve to deepen the roots of democracy here in Nigeria, and we think it's the investment of time and expertise of our core team, our long-term observers, is appreciated, and if there is criticism, it is received in the spirit in which it's given, which is a mutual respect and an insistence on standards of democracy, which Nigeria already aligns itself to, and the standards that are contained in legislation here in Nigeria. First of all, we acknowledge that INEC had to conduct this election in very challenging circumstances, and we are very conscious that the Electoral Act provides a very important legislative basis and framework that instilled a lot of trust in INEC in the run-up to the election from political participants and encouraged many people to take part. However, the publication of figures in relation to permanent voting cards and how they had been distributed across polling units was not made available. The information about the distribution of permanent voting cards across states was made available very late in the process, so that it was very difficult for civil society and members of the public here in Nigeria to verify or in any way audit the accuracy of those PVC numbers. And clearly that goes to the transparency of the election, and it is an area which we have noted in our preliminary statement. I'll just mention I'll let Evan speak to the question that was directed to her on security in due course. But on visa bans, the mandate of this mission is very clear. It doesn't fall to us to make any comments about visa bans or sanctions of any sort. We're here simply to observe the mission. That's a matter for the European Union, the European Council. We are aware that other jurisdictions have made those calls, but it doesn't fall within the mandate of this mission whatsoever. It would be considered an interference in the process. We're here simply to do that, and that's what has engendered a high degree of trust and credibility on the type of findings, conclusions and recommendations that we make. So I'll hand over, Evan, if you want to address the question about security.
The statement, we of course condemn all kind of violence that have taken place, and we also call on all actors to adhere and respect the rules that are in place, and in any case of any disputes, that all disputes are sorted out through legal procedures. So this is our call on all actors in Nigeria, that all disputes should be sorted out through legal procedures, and we hope that everybody will respect and adhere to that. Thank you.
Well, when we carry out an electoral observation mission, we don't compare with previous elections or with other countries. We start afresh from the time that we are deployed here in Nigeria. And so we have obviously taken note of the violence that's been going on. Some of it has suppressed voter turnout, and that's a very serious issue around the inclusiveness of an election, and we have taken note of that across the country, and it has been an issue. There have been many instances in which the election took place in a very peaceful manner, but I think what we have to point out is that where an electoral offence takes place, it is down to the state authorities to investigate that. However, we have noted that there have been abuses of incumbency, where those who wish to organise rallies where governors are not of the same party, that they have been hindered in some way. We have seen instances in which there have been intimidation, and therefore we took note of these issues, and these fall well short of international standards that Nigeria has set for itself. And we would encourage these cases to be prosecuted, because impunity it discourages people from taking part, and this is not up to the standards of inclusivity that we want to see in these elections.
decided to carry out these attacks if they are not sent by their leaders. So please speak to that. Thank you.
Yes, well, there was two peace accords, in fact, and as you rightly note, there was a peace accord last week, and the sentiments of that peace accord are something that we would fully echo in the European Union, and we want to see political participants making very clear statements and not tolerating the type of intimidation that was going on in certain places. And our observations were that there was intimidation going on and that it was intended to suppress voter turnout, and that's a very serious issue, and it falls well short of the standards that Nigeria sets itself. But there should be very clear pathways to prosecution for those who carried this out. There should be very clear provisions within the Electoral Act about electoral offences and intimidation of this sort. So we would take note of that, and we will be part of the final report and conclusions and recommendations that we'll make at the end of this process in a few months' time.
Okay, my question is on the process that you monitored so far. Are there recommendations for Nigeria on how you think the process needs to be improved?
So this is a preliminary statement, I think you're indicating, and therefore we are able to make initial observations, but we don't make conclusions and recommendations until the end of the process. So as an observation mission, we will still be here for the governorship elections, and I think it's really important that we stay here for the long haul, that we came here in early January, and that we do our best to try to bring in all of the voices of the stakeholders, civil society, the judiciary, the security services, the political participants, and that has helped us to make those observations. But it is too soon to make recommendations. Nevertheless, it's fairly clear that some of the technology did not operate in the way that was hoped for, that the degree of planning that went into that was not adequate, that the training for some of the staff that were working in polling units was not up to standard, and that opportunities were missed by INEC to ensure that that planning was properly in place. They are observations that we've made at this point. We're very conscious of the fact that collation and tabulation is continuing, and our staff continue to carry out the process of observation, and will continue to do so for the next few weeks. So it's very much a methodology that is very robust and is credible, the way we work, and we hope that therefore the conclusions that we arrive at are well received by the Nigerian authorities and have an impact.
So, so as you just heard, there are these issues that borders on everyone's mind. So, but whatever it is, we've all seen what took place and what transpired during the elections, and even after the elections still. So many things are still very unclear. So the issue is, if the government of the day will take any advice from these so-called international bodies that they so trust, to the extent that they have to invite them to come and monitor the elections. So I guess they did that for a reason, and now that they have come to pass their own observation and judgment on what they saw during the whole process, maybe they should have a rethink and see what they have to do again to make things better. So, but in the meantime, we still have a governorship election coming on the 11th of March, so which is just a week away, or less than a week away, I would say. So that's it. So for now, I would say goodbye, and God bless you until we meet again. Keep watching.